Hello, and welcome to Story Recap. For this episode, let's talk about what happened in the Commando. So big time spoilers ahead, watch out. The movie begins in a cartel lab. A SWAT team led by elite agent James Baker prepares to storm the lab. The sniper takes out the first guard as he gives the SWAT team the green light to enter. When they reach the lab, a gunfight breaks out between the criminals and the SWAT team. When the authorities took control, the criminals fled downstairs. James and his team go downstairs and continue to eliminate the criminals. After eliminating most of the Mexican cartel, James orders the last remaining Ripper to drop his weapon. At some point, another criminal distracts him and the thug pounces on James with a knife. The villains are finally eliminated, but James discovers that he unintentionally killed 3 hostages. Due to hallucinations and nightmares caused by his PTSD from killing innocent people, he is sent home to recover. He finally meets his wife and 2 teenage daughters after a long time. The scene shifts to an imprisoned criminal named Johnny who will soon be released. A group of criminals is trying to attack him as revenge for what Johnny did to them in the past. He easily overpowers his enemies and sits down to light his cigarette. He is a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan. Moreover, through good behavior, he managed to convince the authorities that he deserves a second chance and he was released from prison. Meanwhile, James is having dinner with his family. Still having nightmares, the 2 girls give their parents a little vacation in the mountains because they need to spend some time together. Back at the prison, Johnny's friends arrive to take him home. In the car, he asked the 2 about the money he had hidden before his imprisonment. Back in the past, we find out that he hid $3 million in the house. It turns out that James and his family live in the same house where Johnny hid the money. James's daughter unexpectedly discovers the money and starts using it. One evening, while the girl is taking more money from the bag, her sister spots her and wonders how she got the money. On the other hand, Johnny stresses that they should take the money quietly without drawing anyone's attention. That evening, the gang arrive at James' house and begin to check out the house. When he returned to the car, the 2 revealed that there were 4 people in the house. Meanwhile, James, who was sleepwalking, wakes up, grabs his gun, and then shoots the window through which the gang tried to sneak into the house. The 3 escape and James wakes up frightened. His wife gets up and takes his gun. He feels guilty and tells his wife he can leave to ensure her safety, but she asks him to stay. The next day, James gets help from a doctor. He explains to him that what he went through is normal after this trauma. He advised him to go on vacation with his wife and it might help him recover from the trauma. The next day, James and his wife leave for their vacation, leaving their 2 daughters at home. In the evening, the gang members prepare their weapons, but they do not expect what will happen. The 2 sisters organized a farewell party for a group of friends to watch a movie together. However, the gangsters didn't seem worried about this and had no intention of canceling the mission. At home, Natalie locks herself in a room as she does not like the atmosphere of parties. By chance, she drops the lamp and finds the box in which Johnny hides the money, a very valuable ring, and a picture of a woman. It was at this point that Natalie decided to do an internet search of the previous owners of this home. She found an article about Johnny's arrest and a photo of the woman who may have been his ex-wife. She decides to hide the box in her computer case and then calls James' friend, Sebastian, and she decides to show him what she has found. She also tells him about Johnny's arrest. He asks her to stay calm and tells her to hide the money and go talk to her sister. Later, Natalie tries to contact her father and leaves him a message asking him to call back immediately. Meanwhile, the goons approach the house wearing masks. They spot 2 teenagers having fun in the car. Someone grabs the boy, while the girl tries to escape, but Dominic shoots her. Sebastian realizes something is up and tells the teens to go home. A man goes out to relieve himself, but Dominic shoots him too. Then they break into the house and Dominic continues killing the teens. Natalie locks herself in the room and hides under the bed. She calls her mother and James answers, but unfortunately he can't hear her very well. He tells her that he will call her later. His wife asked him to call back, but they had no signal. At home, Dominic breaks into Natalie's room and grabs her. Meanwhile, James finally sees a text message from Natalie telling him that criminals have entered the house. He can't tell if he's hallucinating again or if it's real. He gives the phone to his wife and she assures him that it is true. He tries to call Sebastian but he doesn't answer, so he decided to go home right away. Meanwhile, the gang members start to find the money hidden in the house. After they take the loot to the kitchen, someone states that they cannot find Johnny's dead wife's ring. In addition to that, Johnny's brother mentions that $100,000 is missing from the amount. He approaches Natalie's sister and asks her where the money is, but she denies knowing. Fortunately, they found the money behind the wall. Sebastian managed to free his hands. Then he pounces on Johnny's brother and throws him to the ground. He tries to grab the gun, but Sebastian hits his head on the ground, after which he shoots himself in the head. The others arrive and attack Sebastian, also calling Johnny and informing him of his brother's death. The scene turns into a street fight. Ray, an old friend of Johnny's, fights another man. Ray manages to defeat his opponent and then meets Johnny, whom he hasn't seen for several years. Johnny reveals that someone killed his brother and asks them to help him. Later, Johnny and the gang of thugs arrive at James' house. Johnny finds his brother's dead body, takes a knife, and stabs Sebastian to death. He takes Sebastian's phone and calls James, who warns him that if he touches his daughters he is dead. He tells him it's already late. Then Johnny takes Natalie to a room. She gave him the box with the ring. James and his wife finally reach the house. He asks her to stay in the car while he goes to deal with the criminals. He starts to approach the house, but is spotted by 2 gang members in the car. Someone gets out of the car to check on it. James, who is hiding under the car, stabs him on the spot. The other tries to get out of the car, but James beats him unconscious. James then goes through the house and kills the other thugs. As he walks, someone comes from behind and tries to hit him in the head, but James throws him to the ground and then receives a message from his wife telling him that she called the police. Dominic goes out to find dead bodies. James enters the house and finds his first daughter. He orders her to get out of the house. Later, a gang member tried to stab him, but James noticed his stray and killed him on the spot. Meanwhile, Johnny and his men are told that James is here. When Ray sees him, he challenges him to a fight. James manages to slash him several times with a knife and overpowers him. Meanwhile, Dominic enters the house with the gun, but James surprises him from behind. Dominic tries to shoot him, but he turns his hand on himself and pulls the trigger. Then he went upstairs. Someone is holding Natalie hostage. He threatens James to kill her. Nevertheless, James pointed the gun at him and killed him. He hugged his daughter and told her to run outside. James calls Johnny by name and tells him there are only 2 left. He opens the door to Johnny's room and shoots him several times. The 2 engage in a fist fight, with James smashing Johnny's face. As soon as the cop arrives, Johnny manages to convince the cop to shoot James and he will give him half the money and leave. The policeman agreed to his request. The film ends with the arrival of his wife, James, who finally shoots the policeman. The authorities arrived and were able to remedy the situation. If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.